Hey everybody, this is Gus G, and you're listening to Diary of a Madman, the ultimate Ozzy podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Diary of the Madman, the ultimate Ozzy Osbourne podcast where we geek the fuck out about all things Ozzy and all things Ozzy related. Today, we're not only geek out, we Greek out, because we are doing a battle between Diary of a Madman and Blizzard of Oz, the two greatest albums of all time, with the Greek freak, Gus G. He'll be on with us here in a second. But Dan, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Josh. I am so excited to have Gus G on and to discuss the two greatest albums of all time. This is like a dream come true for the both of us.
You know, we got Gus on the phone. He's going on tour tomorrow. So really, we got to get this in while we can, and we're just going to try to power through it. Dan, before we get into the episode real quick, it was last week, but we definitely got to address it. Ozzy has officially announced one more album and then hopefully a short tour. You know, he had said on the SiriusXM listening party to us directly that he wanted to do one more album with Andrew Watt, and now this apparently is something they're hoping to start recording early next year, and that he's apparently already been writing a little bit for. So how exciting, right?
This is absolutely the best news we could have hoped for, Josh. As a diehard fan of Ordinary Man, who never imagined would have been that good, and then Patient Number 9 comes out, and it's even better. Who knows where they can go from here? The interesting thing, Josh, is we know that there are 3 songs left over from the Patient Number 9 sessions that Taylor Hawkins played on. Are they going to bring those 3 songs into the new album? Are they going to write fresh and start all over again? Are they going to invite Zach and Tony back to do some writing? Is Zach going to actually write this time? There's so many unanswered questions that I can't wait to find out about.
Yeah, a lot of questions up in the air. One thing I hadn't thought about, we've mentioned on the show a million times, but we're waiting on these other 3 songs. Maybe that's the case. Say you use these 3 songs, write 7 more new ones, and bada boom, bada bam, you have another album. And I'm cool with that. If that's what they want to do, I am completely cool with that. I'd prefer just 10 or 12 new ones. That way we have all of them. But as a musician and as a songwriter, I do know that would be the tendency probably, is to keep these 3, do something else with them down the road, put them on the next record. And it's exciting times, man. And apparently Ozzy has had one more corrective surgery that apparently has went pretty well. And they're definitely optimistic about that. And there's still a whole lot. The Ozman is not done yet. And I'm excited to see what the new album might sound like. It would be very hard to beat Patient Number 9. But I also said I didn't think they could beat Ordinary Man, and they did by a long shot. So let's see where it can go from here.
Yeah, I totally agree. We didn't think Patient Number 9 had any chance to beat Ordinary Man, and it demolishes it. It's not even close. I'm not one of these guys, though, that sits around and just compares. I like to listen to album on their own merit, which is kind of ironic since we're doing a battle today comparing 2 albums. But you know what I mean, Josh. It's like I just want to enjoy the record and not always compare it to the previous one. I'm just so excited to see what the next chapter of the Andrew Watt, Ozzy Osbourne team can bring us and all of you guys.
Absolutely. All right, Dan, that said, we got Gus on the horn, so let's go ahead and move in. Guys, for your listening pleasure, we have for you Blizzard of Oz versus Diary of a Madman with Gus G. All right, guys, so as we discussed a second ago, very excited to have on the show with us again. I think at this point we can call him a friend of the show. This is his second time on. The true Greek freak, guitar virtuoso, Gus G. How's it going, Gus?
Thank you for having me. I'm fine. Thank you, guys. Hope you guys
He's
do
such
well.
a humble guy. Like when I said the Greek freak, the guitar virtuoso, he literally shook his head no and was like, "Wow, come on, Gus, don't be humble, man. You're amazing."
Oh man, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
So before we get into today's battle, you've recently released a new Firewind album, a live record, 20th anniversary, 20 years of Firewind. How quick is it gone?
I mean, come on. I can't just say that, oh, it was a blink of an eye. Not really. You know, it was, 20 years is 20 years. And we started early on. I started out in my early 20s, my music career. So, I mean, if I sit there, like the thing is, when you are doing things and you're always on the move, you're always kind of like creating stuff or performing or traveling. Of course, time goes by fast. But like if you really stop there and think about it for a minute, and you're like, wow. A lot of stuff has happened over the last 2 decades. I don't know. I guess I grew up, I went from from a kid grown into an adult,
Right.
in the public eye with my band. So I don't know, man. It's been a good journey so far. I can't complain. It has its ups and downs, but it's been a good journey.
Yeah, for me, I have followed your whole career from the early days of Mystic Prophecy, Dream Evil, Night Rage, Arch Enemy, all those amazing bands you were in. And what a great catalog you have, Gus. I just got to state that for the record. But my question is, how do you determine the difference between being in Firewind versus being a solo artist? Because you also have an incredible solo career going as well.
That's a good question. It's really hard to put. Sometimes it's really hard to make all the schedules right, because sometimes there are opportunities that are coming that they might not align with the schedule that I have in my head. So I have to navigate. But at the same time, I always think these are good problems to have. And I'm not complaining as long as there's interest for me to play, to make music. Some people want to hear it, then I'm happy. So, the original principle was to try to do 1 year Firewind and 1 year solo. So of course, everything kind of like it has happened that it crosses each other, we cross paths. Yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, I'm in charge of both bands. So, for a while, Firewind was taking the back seat, and for a while, Firewind was on a hiatus for a few years. So I think that's when I started doing more solo stuff. And, as of late, I don't know, since of 2022, we are kind of going full on again with Firewind. And, I think that's going to be the primary, vehicle for me towards the future, I think. So
right.
That's great. I think I will do solo records whenever. So the thing with the solo records, I don't want to push them so much, and I don't want to make them feel like too forced. You know what I mean? I want to make solo records whenever. I want that to be more of a fun experimental project for me. So yeah.
Maybe in between other more what you would consider more serious projects, and you do your fun solo projects in between.
Yeah. I'm not saying that it's not a serious thing for me. It is, but I want it to be a thing that, when we're like winding down from a Firewind world tour or something, then I can maybe go out and think about doing something. Or like, whenever I make another solo record, I want it to be at my own pace, not because somebody's pushing me like, oh, you gotta come up with the next one. Come on. It's not like I'm gonna have a hit record making instrumental music or anything. So I want to keep it kind of like, okay, go with the flow whenever I have good enough songs. Yeah.
So Josh and I both write, not that I'm trying to even compare us to the same caliber as you, of course, but quick question. When you write, are you writing songs and saying, oh, that's a Firewind song, or that's going to be a Gus G solo song? Or are you like writing riffs and putting them in files on your computer saying, I'll work on that and piece them together later?
Yeah, that's the idea. I just write stuff where it goes into folders of music on my computer, and then I kind of like revisit everything a few months later, see how I feel about it, if it's something I want to use and where I'll use it. And usually it takes it takes for me to write a couple of songs to get my head around, to see what is this, like to finish a couple of songs. That's what I mean. Like when I finish them up, then I can think, okay, I think maybe I have a concept now, like an idea. I have a direction of where I want to go with this. So usually it takes a little bit of time like that for me before I decide how a record's going to shape up and what kind of record that will be.
So when you're writing, do you write riff A goes into riff B, goes into riff C, and then you have almost a completed song that way? Or do you just write riff, file, and then you piece them together later?
It can be anything. It can be just a simple riff that I just throw quickly and just so I don't forget it. Or it could be a session where I actually have 2 or 3 riffs together and I already hear it in my head how it's going to go.
Right.
And I just lay it all out there, put the drums on it, and it already kind of like has flesh and bones, so to speak. And sometimes even like have a working title or an idea for a lyric. So it can be anything really. Like some songs write themselves. They just come to you like that. And then other songs, it might be just little by little, just like riff by riff. And then those are the hardest ones to write because you're like, oh man, why is it such a struggle? Like I remember there was this Firewind song called Welcome to the Empire. That's the opening song on the previous record.
Right.
And that started out as an instrumental that was supposed to be like an instrumental track for one of my solo records because I had this long acoustic intro with a long epic solo. going into this tapping thing, and then like riffs here and there, and then I just had that whole section, and I was like, where is this going? Like, what is that even like a cool instrumental, or is that like some kind of long epic power metal track? So it took me a few years to decide, and then eventually when I'm always confused like that, I'll send some stuff to the singer or the producer, and I'll be like, what do you think? And then and then like, if I get like a cool vocal line back, like, and I hear an idea, then I'll be like, oh, okay, now that clears the scenery. Like now, then that helps me to finalize things.
Yeah. One thing I didn't realize that you said a second ago was a lyrical idea. Do you write many lyrics?
I didn't used to, but lately I started writing more and more.
Cool.
Like, especially on the new Firewind record, I wrote a lot of lyrics together with Herbie, our singer, but I jumped at it more and more. I started doing that more on the last record because out of necessity, because we were in a tight deadline. I was trying to help out the singer. And then I got more, I was never interested in the lyrical part. I was always interested in riffs and arrangements and things like that, and production. And then like lately, the last couple of years, I started paying attention more to it. And I realized that I have things to say as a lyric writer too, even though I don't consider myself the best lyric writer. But at least now I can tell if I really don't like something and it sounds too cheesy. When I was younger, I didn't care what it was. Now I care more.
Funny how it changes.
Yeah, and Dan and I, we play in bands and we write songs also, original bands. My band's called Downtrend, and Dan's had so many bands you can't even hardly mention. Without Fear is his current thing.
It's just like Gus. Gus, has been in bands. I emulate the man.
But when you write riffs, we can't lie. We all have melodies in our head lyrically when we're writing riffs of things that would work. So you're at a point now, if you have maybe something better in your mind, you can maybe, hey, I like this melody better, or let's try this melody versus what before maybe you're just leaving it in your singer's hands and just letting them do their own thing.
Yeah. Now, like, we'll kind of like bounce off each other with that. Like Herbie will send me some stuff back, and then I'll be like, maybe not this, maybe like this. And then, of course, I have to think what fits his range too. I can't just because it has, the singer has to sound great. Like, a great vocal line will only be great if the singer sounds great on it too. If he's struggling with it, or if we also have to think about, because we are a live band, we also have to think about, can he pull that off like on a tour? If we do like 35 dates, we have to think about these things now. We're not 20 years old anymore, so we have to think about it.
For sure.
Is the new Firewind done?
Oh yeah, I mean, by the time this probably airs, tomorrow we are announcing.
You heard it here first. You heard it here first.
I don't know how soon this goes live, but the new album is coming out March 1st.
Congratulations! That's so
congratulations, Gus. So new album March the 1st from Firewind. You heard it here first, and still also supporting Still Raging, the 20th anniversary live album, which came out in September. So
we've like all of a sudden there's like what do you call it? Like a burst of Firewind releases.
Yeah, absolutely. But in the middle of all that, you're also leaving today for tour. You're going on tour for the next couple of weeks, right?
Yeah. It goes back a little bit to what you were saying. Like, how do I manage it all? Like, this tour was planned. Like, I think, I don't know, a few months ago, we were talking about it with the agent that does these solo tours for me. And I said, I'd like to go out and do, like, I don't have anything planned with Firewind after the festivals, because we did like summer festivals. I said, we're not going to go out until next March. Can you book me like maybe a couple of weeks to go and do a couple of small places just to do something before Christmas so I don't get bored? And then obviously he started working on it. And then I didn't think that, okay, now like the whole Firewind campaign is kicking off and we're going to dropping singles and videos. And so I'm going to go off for a couple of weeks. I'm going to do some solo shows, and I'm going to close that chapter as well after this. And I'm going to go back into my Firewind bubble.
Firewind mode. So any plans to come to the States possibly with that?
Yes, there is.
Awesome.
As far as I know, a tour is being booked for the spring. So I hope we can announce it in the next couple of months.
Awesome.
I really hope. I know that a few gigs have already been booked, but I know the agent is working on the routing and, collecting all the offers and stuff. And
awesome.
So please keep an eye out on on those dates, and come on out when we come back to the States.
Dan, you heard him.
Sure.
Gus just told us on the show when he's in our city just to give him a shout, and we're coming backstage and hanging out with him. Right? You heard him say that.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
So, Gus, when Firewind is coming to America, are they coming as a headliner, or are you guys looking to jump on a bigger show as a support act?
We were looking for a couple of opportunities to do another support tour, but like those kind of fell through, and in the end we just said, you know what, let's just headline. We haven't done a headline tour in like 12 years, 13 years in the States. The last one was 2011.
Wow.
And you know, we're not like a big band or anything, but I think we do have a lot of fans all over the country that have been waiting to see a full Firewind set for a while. And I said, you know what, let's just do this. Let's just play a full set. Let's just, you know, it doesn't matter. Let's play like smaller venues, and we can always come back and do another bigger support and play the bigger rooms. But let's just do this, bring the band back, and play a full set instead of like going out and doing like a 40-minute.
This will be your 10th album coming up, which comes out in March. How do you determine the set list at this point?
it's not easy.
Right.
I don't know. It's like, obviously you have to do like certain songs that just been living on the set list forever because you just can't remove them. Like there are songs that everybody will expect to hear. And even if there's people that don't know you in the audience, you kind of have to, they're like staples, you know, they're just like songs that define who the band is, and you have to play them. And then from that, we try to add, obviously coming back like with a new album, we have to add a few new songs to promote the album. Every now and then we'll try to throw in like some obscure song, but you know, with 10 albums, it's kind of hard to just go out there and please everybody. There's always going to be somebody who goes like, you play so-and-so. And yeah.
Well, Josh and I are diehards, and we want to hear the real obscure tracks, no question about it. But you have to think about it from the casual fan's perspective. They need to hear Crazy Train. They need to hear Mama, I'm Coming Home, and all the classic hits.
And that's the thing, you know, Ozzy, because he's a great entertainer, one of the greatest that ever lived, and he knows what to give to his audience, exactly what to give to his audience. And I mean, he will give them a good dose of Sabbath classics, and then, you know, his biggest hits as a solo artist, and eventually he would throw in like one or two songs in there that you might be like, oh, you know.
That's where I was getting ready to go. And when you were in the band for the Scream Tour in 2010, he broke out a lot of classics that had been Killer of Giants. I remember I saw a picture and it said rehearsals, and you could see a whiteboard that had songs written on it, and you could see Killer of Giants. And I'm like, no fucking way. They're not doing Killer of Giants. And then sure enough, for a few nights, you all broke it out. And that was so cool. Yeah. You know, the diehard fans really just want one track.
For the whole tour, it stayed on for the whole world tour.
Oh, it wasn't on in the States when I saw you all. You didn't do it. Maybe I just got a bad night. I was so disappointed.
Oh, really?
I know.
I saw it.
You just skipped it for a couple of nights or whatever. But yeah, sometimes you would skip songs depending on how you felt. But
yeah,
but it was there.
And you all were doing Fire in the Sky also, and you didn't do that one the night I saw it either. So maybe it was kind of the night where he was wanting to skip a few. And
what show were you on?
I was in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, I don't even remember that we played in Nashville.
Yeah, Bridgestone Arena. Yeah, Slash opened. He was part of the leg of the tour where Slash was with you guys. It was a great show.
Yes,
it was great.
That tour was amazing. We went over this with you before when you were on the show, but that tour was so good, man. And even for Ozzy, his performance is such a good tour.
Yeah, vocally
he was on fire on that tour, man. Like and the whole band was like on really tight. You know, it was just like it was a good time. He was really excited because he had a new band. And he was on to about like when we went to Europe, he really wanted to break the record of doing like longer and longer shows. I think the longest set list we did was 2 hours, 45 minutes.
Crazy.
In Japan. And he was just going crazy with it. He's like, I want to do that. I want to play 3 hours long. And I'm like, all right. So
Well, one thing that Dan and I have talked about, you know, Zach's obviously Zach, and him and Ozzy, you know, it's like peanut butter and jelly, right? I mean, at this point in their careers. But the one thing that Dan and I have talked about on this show a lot, and a lot of people will agree with this, is that Ozzy speaks a lot today about how he misses having a true band environment. And we think the last true band environment he had was with you and Blasco and Tommy. You know, and Tommy Clefaitis and Adam Wakeman. That group felt very it was a true group that you could tell you guys enjoyed playing together. Ozzy was having fun with you guys. You're breaking out rare tracks, and the fans could feel that vibe.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we were a band that was put together by management. You know, we were not like guys that were, went way back. I didn't know these guys before. I come from Greece, fly to LA, and I joined one of the biggest artists of all time to be the new guitar player. And I meet Blasco, I meet Tommy and Adam Wakeman. And we rehearsed a lot. We worked a lot at rehearsals. We rehearsed for like weeks and weeks before tour kicked off. And and there was a musical chemistry on stage for sure. And we got along great as people too.
You could tell.
Yeah, it was a good band. And Ozzy was excited, especially the first few months, of the tour, the first year, like he was really excited about it, I think after that, like the whole Black Sabbath reunion thing came into play. And I think his mind was kind of like going back and forth about it. And then he went into that path and that lineup was pretty much not over, but that whole thing was winding down. And then he went into the next phase of his career, which made sense, of course, too,
Well, one thing that'll segue great into today's topic is, and we discussed this with you before on the show, was right before the end of the tour, the 30th anniversary box set was released for Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. And you disclosed to us on this show before that you guys worked up every track from those two records and that Ozzy was considering playing them live in their entirety at the end of the tour.
Did I tell you that story?
You did tell us that story. And so now when we discuss these songs, you're hearing them from someone that has actually jammed them with the man himself and knows how to play every one of these songs. Because you learned every song on both albums, right? The band worked them up.
At some point we did. He had that package.
Yeah.
And he brought it backstage. We were doing a gig at Hammersmith in London. And he came backstage to give us all like a copy each of that. And he goes, in true British fashion, he goes, "Oh, hey, hold on to this. It'll be worth some money when I croak." I'm like,
that's awesome. Typical Ozzy.
Yeah.
So did he have you work up these songs to play both albums back to back, or was he just going to pick and choose the songs he wanted to do from those sessions?
No, it was really like, so what happened was like he went down maybe the memory lane and he's like, "Oh man, those two albums, and then he goes, I think we had like the last leg of the whole tour, which was like 6 gigs. Like we had done like 94 shows and then it was like the last 6. And there was like a month break in between. He goes, it was like summer, it was like July, and then we're going to get together in August. And he goes, "Let's play." I think he came out, that was back in May. It was in May 2011. Like he came out to my wedding. He's like, "I'm gonna take a flight and I'm gonna come out to your wedding." I'm like, "Oh wow, okay." I thought he was joking, but he did.
Wow.
And like, and we were sitting like minutes before we went to church. We were sitting like in my hotel room, and he was just writing down the set list. And I'm like, "Hey, Oz, we gotta go to the church. I gotta get married." He's like, and he goes, "Hey, here." He gives me like this handwritten paper. I still have it somewhere. He's like, here's the set list. We're gonna do that in August. I'm like, okay. And it was like those 2 albums back to back.
Wow.
And I thought he would forget about it by the time he leaves Greece and goes back to England or something, or back to LA. But we got a message from the production manager. He's like, "Well, we're all gonna meet in London and do rehearsals for like 10 days before the last shows. And this is the concept. We're playing the first 2 albums back to back." So everybody's gearing up for it. I'm sitting there learning all the other songs. My guitar tech at the time, we had to bring out like acoustic guitar for doing Diary of a Madman and You Can't Kill Rock and Roll and stuff like that. And like I'm changing all the gear, like a pedal board, to like just everything to accommodate that era. That's different sounds. Like everything is in place. We go all there. We all fly to London like 2 weeks early. And we go to rehearsals like properly, like the whole band, the crew, like everything, man. I don't know how much that must have cost him.
Is Ozzy there at this point?
Ozzy's not there. Everybody else is there. We're ready.
It begs the big question. Did he ever perform them with you, like at rehearsals? Did he ever try to sing them with you?
He came out to a couple of rehearsals. He sang a couple of songs and he was like, fuck it, let's just do this and this. And then he just hung out, had a cup of tea, told a couple of jokes and left. And then the set list went back to what it was. And we're all thinking, of course, it's like, there's like 6 shows left. Like, why
Yeah.
would we just change everything up now?
Yeah. But you do realize, and I know you do realize because you're a fan also, on top of being the man at that moment and you're in the band, but that would have been massive news had you all done that.
Yeah.
To perform those two albums back to back in their entirety would
Yeah.
have been massive news.
Yeah, yeah. I think
And-
like if that was like communicated like to the press and the media properly,
Yes.
that would have been like a big thing. Yeah.
A huge thing. And Dan and I would have flown across the world twice to see it.
Yeah,
So-
definitely. And there would have been some songs he had never played live before, which would have been amazing. Absolutely amazing. You know, he's never done Tonight. He's never done You Can't Kill Rock and Roll. He's never done SATO. I mean, there's so many of those songs he's never done live.
You're right.
Yeah, which would have been
You're right.
amazing.
He did do Diary of a Madman like 6 times, and I did catch that with Joe Holmes on guitar in 2000. So
Yeah.
I was lucky for that. But yeah.
I've never
Oh,
seen
okay.
Diary.
Cool.
Damn you.
Yeah. So, all right. That said, are we ready to get into today's topic, guys?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yep.
All right.
All right. So what we are doing today, we are battling Ozzy's 2 most iconic albums. On one hand, we have the 1980/81, depending on the country, Blizzard of Oz versus the sophomore release of Diary of a Madman. Both albums with Bob, Randy, and Lee Kerslake, and of course both produced by the incredible Max Norman, who really makes an impact on both of these releases. Also, Blizzard is tuned to standard tuning A440, where Diary is tuned a half step flat, which I think makes it a much darker record. And we have our main man, Gus G, with us today to decide that battle. We're going to pit songs against each other, and we're going to determine which album comes on top and what is Ozzy's ultimate album. All right, let's get started. Up first, the iconic concert staple, I Don't Know, versus the incredibly catchy, chugging guitar virtuoso of Over the Mountain. Josh, why don't you start?
Behemoths, right? I Don't Know versus Over the Mountain. 2 great album openers for sure. You can't go wrong either way. But at the end of the day, even though our good friend Ryan Beavers isn't a big fan of Over the Mountain, that drum intro in Over the Mountain catches your attention instantly. Completely classic, from the start to the finish. Randy's guitar solo, maybe my favorite Randy Rhoads guitar solo of all time. There's just so much to dive into on that solo. Like, so many moments. It's just a complete composition on its own, as we say all the time about a lot of his stuff. The vocal melodies are so strong. For me, I go Over the Mountain.
All right, I'll go next. Man, from that intro of Over the Mountain all the way to the guitar solo, it is just an unstoppable track. And Ozzy's melodies, of course. But that guitar solo, let's just be honest, it is what made me want to pick up the guitar. When I first heard that in 1981, right after it was released, it literally changed my life forever. It was never the same. And I have to say, without Over the Mountain, I don't know if I would have ever been a musician and picked up the guitar. And then you throw the melodies on top of it. They're so iconic. Ozzy's hitting extraordinarily great notes on this. It is always stuck in my head. Just one of Ozzy's best tracks. Now, don't get me wrong. I love I Don't Know. It's a great riff, an incredible guitar solo. I've spent many hours learning that one. And of course, the bridge is one of Ozzy's best. And I think the bridge of I Don't Know really set forth Ozzy's trajectory of how he would handle middle eights and bridges going forward. It's that iconic. But at the end of the day, I have to go Over the Mountain. Gus, what do you got?
Yeah, I will agree with you guys as well. Purely because it's for me, it's more like I'm thinking a bit more like my choice is emotional, and it has to do with the fact that Diary of a Madman was not only the first album that I was exposed into Ozzy's music, but Over the Mountain, the first track ever. I mean, I knew of Black Sabbath. I was just very young. I was a young kid. I was, 13 years old or something, or 14. But that was the first cassette that I had. Remember cassettes?
Awesome.
So, and that's just the first song that I ever heard. And I was like, my jaw dropped on the floor. I was like, what is this? Like, who is this? Who is this guitar player? What is this? What amazing riff is this? And the same thing, like the whole guitar work throughout and just the groove, the riff, like the vocal lines. Yeah, I don't know. And I love the track I Don't Know because, we always played it live with Ozzy, and it's such a classic riff, and it's amazing. But I'm thinking, emotionally here. I'm going with that with my first kind of. That was my point of entry, basically. So yeah, Over the Mountain.
Love it. The one thing about I Don't Know though that we got to point out before we move on is that absolutely classic bridge. The bridge section when it goes down to the clean tone. It's so freaking beautiful, man. And live, Randy would different feels every time. It was just always something different, and it was just it's just such a great moment. It's good stuff.
All right, so up next we have the iconic Crazy Train from Blizzard of Oz, Ozzy's most popular song. I think everybody in the world knows the song Crazy Train. You can't even turn the TV on without hearing it in this day and age. Versus the other huge hit in Ozzy's early career, which was Flying High Again. Two titanic songs will battle it out. Which one will reign supreme? All right, I'll go first. First, we have that fucking incredible, iconic riff by Randy. It's the best riff he's ever written. It's the most iconic part of the song is that intro riff and the and all the cool stuff Ozzy's doing. But ultimately, I have a major burnout factor with Crazy Train. It does have an incredible guitar solo, and again, another amazing bridge by Ozzy vocally. It is very major in the verses, and it is almost a pop song wrapped up in a metal song in a way. And it's just become too iconic for me, I think, over the years, where I definitely have burnout factor. I've always been in love with Flying High Again. I think the melody is incredible. It has some great bridges. Those notes Ozzy's hitting, they're very good. They're very difficult, and they're not as easy as it seems. Now, I would say the guitar solo on Flying High Again is even better than Crazy Train personally for me. It's got a lot more depth to it, cool tapping part, a lot more classically inspired. I absolutely love Flying High Again. Cool riff, very unorthodox. I love it when it's live. I go Flying High Again. What do you got, Gus?
I'm gonna have to disagree here with you. My personal pick will be Crazy Train because I don't know, man. It's like everything about that song is just, like when all the ingredients are just right, like everything it falls into place. That song is just a great example of, it's heavy metal, it's heavy riff. I mean, it's such a, I don't know, it's such, like you hear that riff and you go, yeah, this is heavy metal. Like if there was an alien on a spaceship that landed and he was asking you like, oh, you're from Earth. What kind of music do you guys listen to here? And you go like, I love heavy metal, and be like, what is that? Then you play him Crazy Train.
Right. That riff is so good, man.
It's one of those songs, and of course it's poppy at the same time. Like I said, like the verse is kind of poppy and has that happy feel. And I don't know, it's just a hard song to compete with. So I don't know. For me, Crazy Train wins here. Not that I don't like Flying High Again. Great song too.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. All right. So I guess that comes to me. So as Gus said with Over the Mountain, I got to go with my emotions. And Crazy Train is what brought me to where I'm at right now, sitting here talking to you guys on this call. 100%. It's the song. When I heard the riff, Dan, you said Over the Mountain, you heard the guitar solo, you wanted to play guitar. It was when I heard the Crazy Train riff. 100%. I thought that was the coolest shit. Couldn't imagine how in this world someone could do that. I got the tribute tablature book and tried to learn all those songs as best I could. And it's Crazy Train for me. I will admit I listen to Flying High Again more these days because of the burnout factor with Crazy Train, of course, being on the radio all the time and becoming an anthem. I mean, there's like, 7 or 8 songs along with, You Shook Me All Night Long and We Will Rock You that you hear at football games continuously week in, week out. And you hear them, Crazy Train's one of those. It's one of those songs that's trends, it's moved on past pop culture to even something else. Like it's just, everyone knows it. And the new Applebee's commercial during the Monday Night Football games, Dan, we mentioned that today. They're playing Crazy Train at the beginning of it. And it's so weird.
Okay.
I was watching the game the other night and it went off to commercial playing the ludicrous version of Crazy Train. And the first fucking commercial was the Applebee's commercial playing Crazy Train. And I was like, oh my gosh, how cool is that though?
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. And that's great. And ultimately it's the one that brought me here. So I can never go against Crazy Train, man. It's Crazy Train for me.
All right, so up next we have the Battle of the Ballads. Blizzard of Oz's Goodbye to Romance versus Diary of a Madman's Tonight. We had to move the track listing just around a little bit, Gus, so we can have the two ballads face off against each other. All right, Gus, why don't you start us off? Which ballad do you prefer?
Okay. For me, I have to go with Goodbye to Romance. Um, there's just something about that song that I've, it's one of those, like some songs, they just hit you instantly and then others just kind of grow on you. I don't know. I never really, I like Tonight, but it's just, for me, it always felt like a, kind of like a B-side, if you want to call it like that. But Goodbye to Romance is iconic. And I love it that it has this classical element. The guitar has this classical Baroque kind of type of chords and chordal playing. So as a guitar player, it's incredible. It's just a great track to study, and it's just a song that tells a very nice story as well. It's written about, I guess, kind of like saying goodbye, letting go of his past with Black Sabbath. Or at least according to Ozzy, that's what the song is about. But I don't know, man. It's just one of those amazing songs. I love listening to it. As a matter of fact, I recorded a cover of it for the Randy Rhoads tribute album that came out a few years ago, maybe about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I have that.
And you have, okay. And I think Tim Ripper Owens is singing on it.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and he did a great job. Anyways, but Goodbye to Romance.
Did you ever get to play that one with Ozzy?
We did. Yeah, we added it to the set list for a few shows, for a few festival shows, and then it would just kind of like, it was dropped.
Moved on. Yeah.
What do you got, Josh?
Okay. Yeah. Goodbye to Romance is definitely a bona fide Ozzy classic. It's one of those that in the Ozzy canon, everyone knows. That said, Dan and I have already recorded an episode of this podcast before called Top Ozzy Ballads Ranked. And I'm going to spoil it for everybody and let them know that Tonight was number one for me and Dan both. So when Gus goes, a little more B-side feel, I'm like, oh, Gus, you're hurting our soul. Like I know Dan was about to pass out over there too. Like, no, we love this song.
That goes to show you that music has a different effect on everybody. That's the power of music.
Absolutely.
What means something so special to you, it might not mean anything to somebody else. So I'm not knocking the song off, of course. It's just, for me, it just didn't feel as strong, but whatever.
Yeah, but you're picking Goodbye to Romance. It's not like you're picking a slouch. These songs are just so iconic.
That's the thing about these battles. You're never really wrong. They're all great or we wouldn't be discussing them. You know what I mean? Yeah. And when you say has more of a B-side feel, like you're not really knocking the song, it's a B-side. You're just saying it doesn't have the attention that the other one, the detail that the others have to you. And we love all these songs, of course. But yeah, for me Tonight, that guitar solo, that outro where Randy, and it's well known, that wasn't written. He was just, that was essentially his filler. That was his scratch solo. And they didn't really have time to go back and finish it. So they just kept it. And it's become iconic. That's, you're always cranking up the radio a little more to hear the ending. It's more and more and more. And the chorus is so powerful. I think Ozzy's melody on the chorus is just absolutely breathtaking. The chord's so big. That's a great example of like, how you can just hit a note or you can, play, 5 million notes in a minute. But that one note can be more powerful than the 5 million sometimes because that chorus is actually very simple, right? Dun, 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 dun. The simple is just nothing. But I find that chord progression so powerful and uplifting that it hits my emotions more than Goodbye to Romance does. It's that big chorus. And it is kind of, there's a touch of cheese in there, but I like cheese. So I go for Tonight.
Love cheese.
And not to mention Bob Daisley's bass playing on both these records. It's just phenomenal. And he really stands out on Tonight also. It really features his bass playing a lot, I think. So I really, really like that one.
So this is tough because the reason I really got into Ozzy is because of that vulnerability of his voice. His voice is so vulnerable. It brings out an emotion in me that nobody else does. And I do think that Tonight is just a perfect example of that. It's just so haunting and beautiful. I don't know many songs that really capture the lyrics like Ozzy does through the emotion of his melody. Now, I love Goodbye to Romance, but it just doesn't have that like Tonight does. I was also going to mention that end guitar solo as well, Josh. Now, I love the first guitar solo. It's probably my most played Randy solo, and so is Goodbye to Romance. They're both amazing. But that end solo has so much emotion. He's doing some cool runs in there. It's a little bit more complex that people give it credit for, but I don't think you could recapture it. I'm so glad they left it because it is a piece of Randy's soul on tape. I also think some of the notes Ozzy's hitting in the song, especially in the chorus, they're very overlooked. This is not an easy song to sing. So overall, I am going to choose Tonight, but let me give some love to Goodbye to Romance. It's incredibly catchy. I love the piano work by Don Airey, another great guitar solo by Randy, great lyrics by Ozzy and Bob. It really does capture the emotion, like you were talking about, Gus, of him leaving Black Sabbath and leaving that past behind. It is so great, and it's one of his best ballads of his career, but unfortunately it's going up against Tonight, which is my favorite ballad of his career. So my choice is Tonight.
Real quick, Gus, I was going to ask, that Tonight guitar solo. So, like, when you guys were working that out to get it ready potentially for tour, and it just fades out, do you recall? Did you all work out an ending for that, or what did you?
Honestly, I really don't remember what happened.
I know it's been like 15 years now.
Yeah, I really don't remember what happened. I don't know if I just improvised something. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
It was just, yeah.
There's a lot of songs on that record that fade.
Yeah, a lot of those rehearsals are like a blur to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, up next we have Suicide Solution from Blizzard of Oz versus the creepy Believer from Diary of a Madman. Both songs have been in his set list a lot, especially Suicide Solution. Believer being in and out a lot over the years. Should be a tough battle. Both creepy songs. Josh, why don't you start us off?
All right, cool. So Suicide Solution, the guitar solo moment for most live Ozzy shows, right? It's definitely an iconic moment live at most of his gigs. But for me, again, I go Diary of a Madman on this one. I like Believer. Believer has that creepy, dark feel that I just love. You mentioned earlier, Dan, that Randy's tuned down a half step on this album. He's in standard tuning on Blizzard of Oz. I think that definitely adds to the dynamic of a lot of these songs, that they have such a creepier feel. Again, amazing guitar solo, great bridge. Just a lot of parts. One thing about these albums, they were not like, as songwriters, we so often want to go, guitar riff, verse, chorus, guitar solo, chorus out, whatever. A lot of these songs, we mentioned before that they're compositions. They have a lot of parts, and there's just so many great parts. Again, a great bridge. I can't believe they stop and stare and point their fingers, doubting me. It's such a catchy moment. Again, Bob Daisley stands out. He's just such a underrated genius in rock and roll history. I go for Believer.
Yeah, I'm going to agree, Josh. I'm going to go Believer too. Believer has a way cooler riff. That riff is so evil. It's kind of like Slayer before Slayer. It's so iconic. I also think vocally it's way better. Now, I like Suicide. I'm kind of hard on Suicide on this show. It does have a cool riff. I really like the bridge. The melodies are cool. The lyrics are really cool. It also has some overplay, because I don't think I've ever seen him in concert where he hasn't played Suicide Solution. Obviously, it's very controversial. I do think the bridge is really cool as well on Suicide, but the structure of Believer is so cool. It is not formulaic at all. It has verse, and really two bridges. It has that, I can't believe they stop and stare, and you've got to believe in yourself or no one will believe in you. So two different bridges. It really makes the song stand out for me, because it's not standard by any stretch of the imagination. Ozzy's hitting some great notes again on Diary. He's really up there with his range. And again, it's because I think Randy's tuned down a half step, so he's able to push himself a little bit more. But at the end of the day, I'm definitely going to go Believer here. What do you have, Gus?
Yeah, I will agree with both of you guys on this one. I'm also going to pick Believer on this one. It has that kind of like dark, sinister sound. It's almost like, when I first heard it, I thought it was almost sounding like a Black Sabbath riff. That sounds like something that Tony Iommi would come up with, even though I know that Randy Rhoads wasn't a big fan of Sabbath or anything. But that song has that kind of evil, satanic kind of vibe to it, and just great arrangement. I like how they build it up with the bass, great bass line, and then the riffs, how they the way like Bob Daisley's bass work combined with with Randy's riffs is just incredible. Great vocal line. Yeah, I don't know. For me, Believer does it. That's my pick here. Of course, Suicide Solution. What a great song as well, and it's one of those songs that it's also like a staple into Ozzy's live set list for decades. It never left, and it has this big middle solo. Personally, I was always uncomfortable playing those solos, because I don't know. I was like, okay, what to do? It's just, I don't know. One of those things that it was just a little bit too much for me. I just didn't. But I love the song regardless. But yeah, Believers. It's just that riff, like you said. It has that kind of, I don't know, Sabbath or Slayer kind of vibe to it. It's obviously the tritone. It's just like that flat five.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking in musical terms, yeah.
Yeah, he actually even does the flat fifth on Over the Mountain, which is very reminiscent of Black Sabbath. And Randy didn't even know it because he wasn't a fan. So it's really cool that he was picking up on those same vibes with Ozzy and not even realizing it, for sure. Great point, Gus.
Yeah, great points.
All right, up next we have the opening of Side 2 for Blizzard of Oz, Mr. Crowley versus the epic and iconic You Can't Kill Rock and Roll from Diary of a Madman. Two titans battle it out. Gus, start us off. What do you got?
Yeah, just hard to pick a song here, you know. It's really hard because I love both songs so much.
Yep.
And I remember, you know, like I was exposed to You Can't Kill Rock and Roll earlier than Mr. Crowley, but Mr. Crowley, there's something about that song, man. It's that epic intro, the keyboards. You're like, what's going on here? You know, what is this? That song has a very European flavor to it. I don't know if this is true, but I knew that Randy Rhoads was a huge Gary Moore fan. I think Gary Moore at one point, he said that Randy Rhoads was inspired by the end solo, kind of did a rework of his Parisian Walkways chord progression.
Oh.
And that melody, you know, Parisian Walkways. And he kind of did his own version of it. I don't know how true that is. I mean, that's kind of like a standard type of chord progression, moving in fourths and stuff like that. And it has a classical vibe to it. I don't know. For me, I have to go with Mr. Crowley. For all those reasons, it's just the atmosphere of the song and the feeling of the song. Yeah, Mr. Crowley. I don't know.
It's Mr. Crowley.
Yeah, I love that point about Gary Moore, Gus. I mean, we always take things that we love and we kind of incorporate it and make it our own all the time when we're songwriting,
Absolutely.
right? You could almost see Randy saying, oh, I really like that. I'm just going to incorporate that my own way. You know, I kind of think Bark at the Moon kind of has that Mr. Crowley vibe too at the end. You know,
no, because that's totally different chord progression. But
yeah, it's definitely different chord
I can see the idea maybe that ending with a solo that is more like a theme instead of a solo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but not in terms of like, you know,
but the
chord progression. Yeah, like Mr. Crowley has definitely a pretty much similar. I'm not exactly how now, but I think it's very similar chord, following the same changes as Parisian Walkways.
This is a tough matchup for me. You have the amazing vocal melodies and the epic arrangement of You Can't Kill Rock and Roll versus really one of Ozzy's most iconic songs. I actually think the guitar playing in Mr. Crowley is my favorite guitar playing in any song by anybody of all time. It is the zenith of Randy's career and maybe the zenith of any metal guitar playing ever. There's so much going on in that song. The bridge, you know, was it polemically sent part was absolutely, it's incredible. Ozzy just nails it. It's a very difficult part to sing over, and Ozzy really does a great job of coming up with an incredible melody. And hats off to Bob on some great lyrics here. I know it was Ozzy's idea to write about Aleister Crowley, but Bob does a superb job of making it a song. Was the bridge, Gus, hard to play, or did you follow the studio version or more of the live tribute version? Because he plays it a little different.
Yeah, I think I did just like a version of kind of like a little bit of a mashup of his live version, his studio version, a little bit of how Zach played it, because I love Zach Wilde as well, and the way he you know, his own spin to his era with Ozzy in the 90s era. I mean, so it was a little bit of all that, plus, you know, there's like, that's one of the songs that has a couple of moments where you can throw in your own little thing in there too, and eventually that grew. So yeah, as we got on the tour or like years went by, like I started adding more and more of my own stuff there. In the end, I would just go like crazy and do like crazy diminished like runs and stuff. But I don't know. But I did try to stick to the originals because I know that Ozzy liked that in his head, how he liked to hear it, and I think that fans want to hear that too. I always try to put myself into the shoes of a spectator. Like, you know, you're there, you go to an Ozzy show, and you definitely expect to hear the songs played correctly. But yeah, with that said, there's a little bit. I did a little bit of a a mix up of what's the word, like a mix of
mashup.
Mashup of different versions. Yeah.
But that said, Ozzy was always pushing you to do your own thing with them also, right? I know I've heard you in interviews before, so he did always say kind of do your thing, like make them your own.
Yeah. He did. I think just he did that because originally I wasn't sure what they wanted. And when I first started on the tour, I definitely was following more along the lines of like, I wasn't sure if he wanted to have like the classic recordings as they were, or when we were doing Sabbath, did he expect me to try and emulate Tony Iommi, or when we did the Zach stuff, he expected me to emulate it. And I was pretty good at that. I could emulate other players, and especially those players, because they were right up my alley. I grew up with all of them.
So what, you grew up playing like the rest of us. Yeah.
So I wasn't sure if that was the idea. And then he kept telling me like, do your own thing, be you. So of course it's easy to say, of course it's harder to do, because you have to follow certain rules here. These songs are written, like especially Randy solos are like you guys said, they're like compositions within the actual composition. So like, how much of that can you just touch and move away from that? How much can you stray away from that without really sounding like shit or just sounding too weird? And I wasn't too much into that myself either. I was like, well, why would I just do my own solo over this when it's such a beautifully crafted solo anyways?
Right. Well, it would almost be like singing different lyrics to the song at this point, to do that to those albums, to those songs.
There were like smaller parts here and there but it needs time. Like as you go along the tour and you feel more comfortable and get more accepted by everybody, then you kind of like start adding those little things. So that was basically my approach to the whole thing.
Very cool.
So my pick is Mr. Crowley. Josh, what do you got?
That's all you're gonna say?
Hey, I was already talking.
Oh yeah, you already went over it. Okay, yeah. I got to go, Mr. Crowley. I do. You Can't Kill Rock and Roll was a definite. That's one of those diehard classics. The typical metalhead may not know that song, but if you are a true Ozzy fan, that's one that you love. And I think Randy had a real thing for that song. I know he was always disappointed that they didn't play more songs from Diary of a Madman live, and that's one that in a few interviews he pointed out that he'd like to do was You Can't Kill Rock and Roll. That's one he wanted to play. Mr. Crowley, though, for all the reasons you guys have just said, it's the iconic Ozzy. That's maybe, aside from Crazy Train, that may be the number 2 most iconic song he has. And, it doesn't really have a chorus. It's so strange. Like it's laid out so differently than anything traditional.
You're right.
Like in a weird way, the hook is the guitar solos.
That's a lot of Sabbath.
Like the verse is the chorus at the same time.
Right.
Yes.
Because he starts out, he just says Mr. Crowley. Like, so that's the title, that's the hook right there. And then he goes on with, so.
Yeah, and then the guitar solos are like the choruses almost, or they're like the hook of the song. Also, it's such a different song. Like I would never think to write anything like that, but it's magical. It's amazing live. It's amazing in the studio. I just love hearing this, and it never ages. It never gets old at all.
Yeah,
I really think they got that from Sabbath, though. Like Fairies Wear Boots is exactly like that. They have that hook in the verses. Fairies Wear Boots, you gotta believe me, and that's kind of the chorus. So I think they got that from Sabbath. Yeah, Fairies Wear Boots doesn't have a chorus. And I think that's what's really cool about early Ozzy. Unlike any other era, they really kind of followed what some of Sabbath did early on, where they just didn't have choruses. They had parts, right? All these different bridges and verses. And, you have Believer, Mr. Crowley, and SATO. All of these cool songs kind of follow that pattern. I mean, Sabbath's arrangements, they were just insane. I mean, like the first 5 or 6 albums barely have any choruses.
Because they were all smoking and drinking too much.
Exactly. Right?
Yeah, with Sabbath, you feel like it's like, hey, I got 4 songs written, but what if we just like mash them up into one song and it'd be one 9-minute epic?
Yeah, exactly.
And we love it.
All right, up next, we have the 2 tracks from the Randy Rhoads era that just does not get the love and attention they maybe deserve. The 2 weaker tracks from the era, we're going to go with Blizzard of Oz's No Bone Movies, the fun heavy metal rocker, versus the heavier, darker Little Dolls from Diary of a Madman. Josh, what do you got?
This one for me is pretty easy. I go No Bone Movies all day long. I think No Bone is actually stronger than a lot of people do. I love just how fun that song is. It's really fun to play on guitar. Just a up-tempo rocker. It's very much a classic rock song. I prefer Randy's solo on Tribute a lot more, where he actually plays a solo versus the slide solo on the studio version. I'm not a big fan of that. Gus, be interesting to hear when you were working that up, which one you went for, if you just did your own thing on that, because there's the slide solo on the studio version, which is kind of awkward a little bit.
Okay.
Little Dolls has that massive, drum intro also, and we've discussed on the show before that Dan kind of pointed out to me just how strong the bridge of that song really, and how Beatles-esque that bridge is. And this really made me love that song a lot more than I used to, Dan, so I definitely appreciate that. But that said, at the end of the day, I love to have fun when I listen to music. And I think music this day and time needs to be more fun. That's kind of what's missing from rock and roll right now, is these fun rock and roll songs, man. Party all night, whatever. No Bone Movies, the long outro, which gets a little bit X-rated for a moment there. I love it all. So I'm going No Bone Movies.
Awesome. What do you got, Gus?
I don't know, man. I think it's might be considered sacrilege what I'm about to say, but I was never a big fan of those songs, any of those songs myself. I don't know why. They just didn't resonate with me. Not that they are not very good songs. They are. It's just not, it wasn't like up to the level of Mr. Crowley and such. I did rehearse No Bone Movies. I remember like I never really paid attention to that song until it was time to learn it. And I was like, okay, it's like a fun rock and roll song. Like you said, Josh, yeah. I was like, okay, yeah, it's like a cool, fun rock and roll song. I don't remember what kind of solo I did though. Definitely not slide, because I can't play slide to save my life.
Well, Randy struggles with it also. If you listen close to that, yeah, I'm gonna get killed for this, but his slide solo, I don't think it's that spectacular. So I'm glad live he decided not to do that.
I don't know. I guess unless you're like a country style guitar player and you're born into that kind of thing, then I'm not saying you cannot master it if you're not that guy. But yeah, like chances are, if you're like a rock metal guitar player, you probably haven't spent much time with a bottleneck. So yeah. So I don't know. I think Little Dolls is pretty cool for me. Like you said, epic drum intro, cool heavy riff. Good groove. Yeah, I like it. I think I might go with that one. Yes, I'm more drawn to that side. Yeah.
The cool thing about Little Dolls is that Randy really changes up the riff every time he plays it. He is just playing a ton of different fills every time he plays it. He never plays it the same way twice. It's very iconic.
He did that on quite a few songs, though, didn't he? Like
SATO is another one.
SATO, yeah, correct.
I don't know.
Yeah. I really think it stands out in Little Dolls. The bridge in Little Dolls is one of the best melodies I think Ozzy's ever written, that you never imagined such a fate could follow you. It is so Beatle-esque and so melodic, and I love the play between the two vocal melodies going on there. That melody is beautiful, haunting, and gorgeous. But I'm going to agree with Josh. Overall, I just think No Bone Movies is such a fun song. It is a classic rock and roll song. I know it gets a lot of slack, but I just love everything about it. I think the ending is incredible. Lee Kerslake does some incredible drumming. I think Ozzy's woos and just No Bone Movies at the end, doing that outro is a lot of fun. He's really into it. Overall, I just think it's a more enjoyable track. Actually, Josh, the slide works a little bit better at the end than it does actually during the solo. I just think it works better. So I don't know if we discussed this, but No Bone Movies was a last-second addition because Lee had just joined the band. The original track to be on the album was You Looking at Me, Looking at You, which is a way better song. It would have made Blizzard that much better, but they did give that nod to No Bone Movies, I think just to throw Lee a bone since he had just joined the band and had a writing credit on it. You Looking at Me, Looking at You would have been the right choice, don't you guys think?
Yeah, but cool team effort to say, hey, Lee had a part in writing, No Bone Movies, so let's put that one on the record so he gets songwriting credit on the record. So that's cool too, though.
Yeah. So my pick is No Bone Movies. All right, so up next we have the last track from Blizzard of Oz, Steal Away the Night, and the haunting, creepy SATO from Diary of a Madman, which we all know stands for Sharon Arden and Thelma Osborne. All right, I'll start off. Steal Away the Night is a really underrated track. In my eyes, it's really a pop song, kind of disguised as a metal track. It is so catchy, very similar to Crazy Train. And I think that the melodies are absolutely incredible. I think Randy's guitar solo insane. It's really fun to play. I love that little riff that comes out of the solo that Judas Priest kind of uses in Electric Eye. Catchy as shit. And then, of course, Bob Daisley's bass playing is insane on this track. Another highlight is the backing vocals at the end of the song that Ozzy and Bob are doing. You know, they don't do that very much on the first two records, but they are hitting some really clean, awesome notes in the chorus. But at the end of the day, SATO's got that creepy intro. It's got a better riff. I think Ozzy's melody is better. I think the guitar solo is one of Randy's best of his career. It's incredibly underrated. And again, we see them emulating Black Sabbath, where there's not a chorus. It's mainly just the verses that really drive the song. So this is the one song from that era that Ozzy is not happy with his vocal performance. I know he left the studio early so him and Sharon can go out and do some things. And I love that he cracks a little bit on the word voyage. If you listen really closely to the record, I think it's a really endearing, and it adds to that vulnerability that we all love about Ozzy. Yeah, it's really endearing, and that's who he is at the end of the day, and I just love that about him. So my pick is SATO. What do you have, Josh?
I'm going to say dildo on that and go SATO also. Still Away the Night. I definitely wanted to point out, I was, jamming the album this morning, just kind of getting ready for this, and Bob's bass playing one more time. He almost drives the bus on Still Away the Night. His bass playing early on the intro of that song is just so spectacular. But no, I'll go SATO also. That song's just always felt very special to me. Gus mentioned earlier the feels, the emotion. That's just the one I've always connected with. When it kicks in, it always came in like a hurricane to me. And the intro plays in so perfectly with that subtle intro to that moment when it kicks in with the riff that I just always found so simple but so powerful. Again, kind of like the Tonight chorus. I love it. I always had an eerie feel also. I'm going for SATO.
What do you got, Gus?
Yeah, same here. SATO, like there's certain atmosphere about that song, and again, the intro, very interesting chordal playing from Randy. Great chord progression and how he builds it up. Yeah, I like it's and you can hear like his double guitars are not really in sync the whole time, but that's kind of cool.
Yes,
right.
And yeah, I like that how that's a perfect example of a song where how Randy was incorporating rhythm and lead at the same time.
Right.
Like all those little fills and trills and things here and there. Great solo, like a lot of key changes. Like the note choices on the key changes is just incredible. Like from a guitar player point of view, it's just masterpiece. Yeah. I just love it as a song. Steal Away the Night is cool track. But for me, like I remember when I first heard SATO, I was like, wow, what is this? Also as a guitar player, but also, the vocal melodies, great vocal melodies from Ozzy. Again, like probably I never really noticed until we started analyzing it that it's not one of those songs. It's almost like that Mr. Crowley vibe where, the verse is actually the chorus. Like,
right.
That's
song,
it.
Yeah. Gus, have you ever listened to Randy's any of his Quiet Riot stuff? I know it's kind of harder to get hold of, and
not much really. No, I haven't.
There was a song on Quiet Riot too called "We've Got the Magic," very poppy. We've got the magic. It's very, but the guitar riff is na 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 na, and he repeats it, which went on to be the lead into the guitar solo on SATO. It's a cool moment.
Good little fact, Josh. All right, so we finish the battle with the biggest battle yet. This one we put together for you specifically, Gus. We have the two classically inspired masterpieces. On one hand, we have the very, very classical Revelation Mother Earth from Blizzard of Oz versus the very classical, progressive Diary of a Madman from Diary of a Madman. Two behemoths will battle it out. Which one do we got? All right, I'm going to have you start, Josh.
Me? How about Gus would start this one? Okay. Maybe two of my top 5 favorite songs of all time. Like, I absolutely love the instrumental section in Revelation Mother Earth. I could put that section on that, like, I don't know, 45 seconds or 1 minute, whatever it is, that one section. I can almost listen to that on repeat and just listen to all the different instruments, the piano and just the acoustic guitars in the background that's so subtle in the back. Absolutely love it. And I love that when it comes in, the dynamic of the heavier guitar, this takes my breath. I absolutely love it. And not to mention, one thing I would be remiss if I didn't say it, the lead in from Revelation Mother Earth building into Still Away the Night is perfection. Da, 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 da. Then into that riff.
Mhm.
Oh, it's freaking perfect. That's perfection. That said, Diary of a Madman is probably my all-time favorite song. And I think if you have a list, a checklist of what makes a song great, it checks every box. You have an amazing composition at the beginning of classical music, nylon string classical guitar, into the heavy riff, slowing it back down for Ozzy to sing these great emotional lyrics about, the demons that live inside your mind and your head, and just dealing with that. And then the guitar solo always reminded me a little bit of Stairway to Heaven for some reason. The guitar solo and Stairway, I've always found them similar in vibe for some reason. And I love the Stairway to Heaven solo also, so that's perfect. But that ending with, the London Chamber Choir and the symphonies and everything, you just cannot beat that. That is complete perfection personified. Like, that's the greatest album closer of all time. There's no other way to close the record. And when it ends, you feel like you not only just heard a kick-ass rock album, but that you saw some kind of production that was just like, oh my goodness, great. It hits every feel you could possibly have. 100%. And I'm so glad I got to see it live. If only he played it a few nights. I did look out on that. I didn't see Gus do Killer of Giants, but I did see Diary of a Madman. So I go Diary of a Madman over any song ever written.
Okay, I'll go next. Revelation and Diary are probably the two best composed songs on the guitar of all time by anyone. They're both classically inspired and just genius compositions. Revelation is a journey. The intro is very Bach-like. It has a huge wave of great riffs and heavy guitars. The solo is mind-boggling, and it is incredibly composed. It is clearly a perfect example of Randy doing a song within a song. It is quite difficult to play in parts, it's extremely melodic, and it just flows beautifully with the music behind it. Bob's lyrics are absolutely incredible, talking about the destruction of Mother Earth and how we are responsible for it. It is so far ahead of its time. And don't get me started on the amazing vocal melodies that Ozzy has produced here. They are mind-boggling, absolutely incredible, considering the music he is having to compose over. And that is hats off to Ozzy for really composing something that is incredibly accessible over such a complex piece of music. That is not easy to do. But unfortunately, Diary of a Madman is the greatest song ever composed by anyone, period. Just look at the time signatures alone. There are parts in that song that are 4/4, 3/4, 7/4, 9/8. That is incredible, and the listener can never really tell we're moving through different time signatures. And that is just the genius of Randy, Bob, and Lee, who composed this music. Now let's talk about Ozzy's contribution, because really, Ozzy's vulnerable vocals is really what puts Diary of a Madman together. And it is an incredible accomplishment. There is so much vulnerability. You can feel the emotion. You almost sound like someone going insane listening to this vocal. And hats off to Ozzy, because he's hitting some great notes. You feel the pain in his voice. And the melodies are just so catchy and so incredible. The bridge of Diary of a Madman is my favorite song of any part of any song ever. And that ending is so iconic with the choir, the orchestration. It really sounds like you're reading a diary written by someone who has gone mad. Hats off to the guys for composing the greatest song of all time. My choice is clear. Diary of a Madman. What do you got, Gus?
Yeah, it's a really tough choice, man. Like, you guys have described both songs great. And I have studied guitar parts for both songs quite a bit, especially back in the day. And Revelation Mother Earth is, again, it's like it almost goes into the classical music world,
very Bach.
Like very Bach, Baroque kind of style of guitar. Incredible chordal playing, the stuff he chooses, like the harmony, his all the note choices. It's just a wonderful piece to study as a guitar player. So I suggest that whoever is listening, and if you are a guitar player, go check those out and definitely, pick up your acoustic guitar. If you don't have one, you have an electric, put on the clean tone and just learn those. It's just a great study. It will just open your mind. And again, it's such a tough choice here. But the thing is with Diary, it's just such a classic, and it goes beyond, like, I think the words to describe that song is just progressive. It's not progressive rock, like it was just like a very progressive song. It was kind of like very different for its time. It was, I don't know, it was, you wouldn't call it experimental because everything is so thought out and so, like that, like the blend of styles and the blend of things that are on there is just very unique, such a unique song.
Yeah.
And how it builds up. Like it starts from this kind of flamenco style thing. I think that main riff was from an idea that Randy sort of ripped off from Segovia or something.
Yes.
From one of his studies. And I think Ozzy heard it like, oh, that's a riff. He said, well, that's
right.
Segovia. And he goes, well, you should do a rework of that and let's make that a riff. And how they made that into a metal riff and how that takes off and becomes what it becomes and, has all these different time changes. And just the again, the dark atmosphere of the song. And like, I mean, come on, like the ending, like you said, with a choir, with the orchestra, it's like, you think like some kind of satanic mass is happening there. I remember when I first heard it, I was scared in the end. I'm like, whoa, what is this? Like, what's happening here? Like, is this Satan gonna come out now or something from the speakers?
Yeah.
It's cool, man. It's cool. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Diary. I don't know. I'm gonna
awesome.
go with Diary.
And that's today. We always say tomorrow it could be Revelation.
You're right. Yeah.
Exactly. And the solo is really interesting because he plays it in harmonic minor. He might change the fourth on that though. And then the ending coming out of the solo, he goes into
pentatonic. Exactly.
And that's a really cool dynamic going from harmonic minor to pentatonic coming out of that.
And even like the harmonic minor stuff he did was just like he played like really big intervals. So it didn't sound like your standard neoclassical kind of thing that, we later heard from Yngwie and such, but and then all the others.
Right.
But it was just like a very, like he really his own vibe to it, like which was more like from the classical world. Yeah, just like his note choices were like, I don't know, it's a perfect example again of how he constructed his solos. They were not just like rock and roll solos, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He didn't just go for it. He really thought
them out. And Gus, as we get older, I know you and I think are the same age. I believe I'm 43.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
That's what I thought. And Dan's a few years older. But now we look back also and go, wow, Randy was 25 years old when he died. So I mean, he's writing this stuff at 23 years old, 24, and it's just it makes it that much more mind-boggling as time wears on that he was able to do this stuff at that age. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's really crazy and scary what could have been. I mean, because that's looking back, it's amazing for anyone to write this stuff, but to write it at that age is just unreal.
You're right. You're right.
So let me ask really quick, which cover do you guys prefer? We have the iconic Blizzard of Oz, where Ozzy's holding up that cross. I love the outtakes on that too, where he almost has that black metal makeup look. It's so cool. But that iconic cross where it looks like he's going to smash it, or the classic iconic eerie Diary of a Madman that has so much nuance, it's incredibly eerie. Josh, why don't you start?
I like Diary of a Madman. That album cover is so cool. Little tidbit for Gus that he may or might not. Did you know that's Ozzy's son Lewis on the cover with him?
Yep. Yeah, I knew that. Yep.
But yeah, I like that album cover better personally. It sets the perfect tone for the record. That album sounds like that cover looks like. It's creepy and sinister.
You're right about that. Yeah. I mean, that song, that album cover and the song is like, that's it.
It's the perfect fit.
Okay, for me, it's got to be Diary of a Madman. Shit, when did that come out? 81, I would have been, 8 or 9. And that album cover was so impressionable on me. I mean, we would literally look at it. I'd count the candles thinking there was a deeper meaning behind it. Try to read all the spell books that Ozzy had in the back. And I love that it kind of has a Sabbath Bloody Sabbath vibe to it, where the front is really evil and demonic. But the back, you got Ozzy back there with his arms raised, like almost turning the cross upside down. It just was so impressionable to me as a kid. I got to go Diary of a Madman. All right, so I have the totals from the battle. Gus, you were 5-3 Diary. Josh, you were also 5-3 Diary, and I was 6-2 Diary. I do just think Diary is the better record overall. It has the better production. Randy's tone is way better. I think the songwriting is more adventurous. I know they were under pressure to record and release these records, both of them very fast, but Diary overall, I think, is the better record. And that is why we have Diary and a clean sweep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew where I leaned and I knew where Dan leaned. Gus, I thought you would go Blizzard of Oz. So you've surprised me in a good way for the clean sweep.
Earlier on, I said that, the first point of entry with me, getting introduced to Ozzy's solo music was Diary of a Madman. So that also is that plays a role, man, like in your choices and what you think of someone, like what was the first record and all that stuff. Like, the only difference really for me is that, Blizzard of Oz has Crazy Train. I'm not saying that the rest of the record isn't a masterpiece. It is.
Mr. Crowley.
But Crazy Train is the, it's the evergreen hit. It's like you said, that's the song you will always hear in commercials and stadiums, and it's just that big song.
Yeah.
And maybe Diary didn't have that type of a big song. Maybe they tried with Flying High Again, but it didn't come up to that level of success.
Yeah.
But still, like I will agree with you guys that it was just overall it was a better record. And maybe, because the team was already tried and tested, and then they went back and did the second record, of course, it's...
Yeah. And, as far as that level of fame for a song, Dan and I have mentioned recently on another episode that really in Ozzy's career, the other, aside from Paranoid with Sabbath, it's Mama, I'm Coming Home. It's probably the other it's kindly closest to that you would hear it on TV commercials, on TV shows, things like that,
Carrie Underwood covering Mama, I'm Coming Home, I also think is giving it a new lease on life, which is awesome. All right, Gus, before we let you go, tell us the name of the new Firewind record, and when does it come out?
It comes out March 1st, and it's called Stand United.
Stand United.
Stand United?
Yeah, it's a very innovative title, I know, but...
it's so hard to come up with titles at this
Exactly,
It really is, man. How many tracks are going to be on it?
10 tracks. 9 originals and 1 cover.
What cover are you doing?
I don't know if you know, you probably heard that song. It's a song called Talking in Your Sleep.
Oh, yeah, of course.
By the Romantics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a big hit in America or anything, but yeah. But here it's one of those radio songs here, at least here in Europe. It's been played a lot. Yeah, I always loved it growing up, and so we just gave it a more metal twist.
Yeah. There's nothing like giving an 80s pop song a metal twist, man. I love it. So it's a great choice. That's awesome.
And as far as album titles go, I'm to the point now with my band, I titled them like 4 or just weird shit.
You know what I mean? Led Zeppelin on it, right?
It's useless. Like, whatever.
So, Gus, thank you so much for coming on. We cannot tell you how much it means to Josh and myself. It is so nice of you. You're just an awesome, awesome dude. You're a great guitar player, and we cannot wait to hear the new Firewind Stand United.
Thank you.
For us, obviously, Ozzy is everything, but the people he has surrounded himself with over the last 50 years is incredibly iconic, and you've just been such a huge part of that. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to talk to you. And, when we roll through town, you're always invited to come hang out and say hello.
Absolutely.
And, thanks again for having me on.
Thank you, man.
Thank you,
We'll talk to you soon, Gus.
Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I want to thank Gus so much for joining Josh and I today on the Diary of the Madman podcast. It was amazing having him on. It was really an interesting interview. Incredible. So right now, Josh and I are going to take some time and we're going to do the ultimate album for you guys, where we combine songs from both records and make one ultimate album. I will go first. All right, my album starts with that incredible drum intro. We have starting Over the Mountain with the ultimate album. Then we're going to slide right into Flying High Again. I love that. On Diary of a Madman, I'm going to keep it. And then from there, we do the little gong action, and we're going to go to another up-tempo track of I Don't Know, which is our first Blizzard track. Then we're going to end side 1 with the classically inspired Revelation Mother Earth. We're going to open up side 2 with the eerie intro of Mr. Crowley. Keep that same as Blizzard of Oz. Then we're going to go into You Can't Kill Rock and Roll, another epic. Then we're going to slow it down to the Ballad of Tonight. And there's only one way to close this album, Josh, and that is the best song of all time, Diary of a Madman. So my ultimate album is actually 5-3 Diary, so just a tad bit closer than what The Battle was. So super excited. That was a fun exercise. Josh, what do you got?
Yeah, hard to go wrong with Diary closing out the album, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to open up with Over the Mountain. It's just so powerful out of the gate. I just can't resist it. I could never change that. And I love Over the Mountain into Flying High again, so I'm going to keep it. And then we're going to go into Believer. And like you, I'm going to finish off side 1 with Revelation Mother Earth.
Nice.
And side 2 is going to open up with All Aboard with Crazy Train opening up that side. And then we're going to slide into the eerie keyboards of Mr. Crowley and coming out of that into Tonight. And then Diary of a Madman. Dude, like you said earlier to me off the call here, combining these records is the hardest part, right? There's so many songs that are like top 10, top 15 Ozzy songs for you and I that probably aren't going to make the combined record. It's just, there's so many classics on these two.
There are so many songs that I want to include on this. It was so hard. You were right, Josh. But not having SATO into Diary was the one that broke my heart the most because it's just so iconic.
Yeah. It kills you. It does. It kills you. So, but man, how cool. I mean, again, huge shout out to Gus G for coming on the show with us. Like, how freaking cool that he just wants to come on here and do a battle with us. And let us just tell you guys, listeners, genuinely, he's a nice guy. Like, he just couldn't be friendlier. And we can't thank him more for coming on. It's just so cool to hear his opinion on these tracks. And you're talking about a guy that has played these songs with Ozzy. I mean, how freaking cool was that shit?
It was absolutely incredible. I really enjoyed hearing him talk in specifics about how he worked on the bridge of I Don't Know, comparing Randy's solo studio time to the live version, to the Zach version, adding his own input. That was all so cool. Also talking about playing SATO and No-Bone Movies and working up all those songs for the supposed Diary and Ozzy show, which would have been mind-blowing, man. He really was with Ozzy for such a long time. He's iconic now in the Ozzy folklore. I really, really believe the Ozzy camp blew it by not letting Gus write the riffs and Ozzy the melodies and doing a modern day record together. I think it would have been a great throwback to the Jake and Randy era, and I think the fans just really missed out. It would have been incredible. What a great guy and a great player.
No question. No question. All right, so before we move on, Dan, is there anything else you'd like to say to the listeners before we sign out for this episode?
I just want to say I hope they enjoyed it as much as you and I did, because that was really special. And again, I want to thank Gus for coming out and hanging out with us. How incredible was that, man? Awesome.
Dan, thank you for the time, dude. Looking forward to seeing the fans' reaction on this. And let us know again, like Dan always says, what's your combined album? Which album do you prefer, Blizzard of Oz or Diary of a Madman, the two greatest albums of all time? But until then, messages, let us know. But until then, we'll see you guys on the other side.
Thanks for coming.
No, thank you for coming.
Is the new Firewind right. Done? The new Firewind record?
Oh, yeah. I mean, by the time this probably airs, tomorrow we are announcing the new album.
You heard it here first. You heard it here first.
I don't know how soon this goes live, but yeah, the new album is coming
couple
out
of days.
March 1st.
Yeah, congratulations. That's so
Congratulations,
exciting.
Gus. So new album March the 1st
from
Firewind. You heard it here first.
Oh, shit.